Hey everyone, before we dive into tonight's terrifying true story, make sure to hit that like button if you love horror. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I always love seeing viewers from all over the world. Now, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, because this one is going to haunt you. I lived in Mesa, Arizona when I was 10 years old. We lived in a rough area, but I was just a kid, completely ignorant to the dangers of the world. I was walking back home from my friend's house, and my mother wanted me home by 9. I'd always start walking back at around 8:40 to make sure I wasn't late, and it's only like a couple blocks from my house, so it wasn't a super long distance. It was around the time of year when the sun would set at 5:30 and be dark well before 7 p.m. So it was very much nighttime. As I'm walking, I hear a woman calling my name. I turn to look and see it was one of my mom's friends, but she didn't know her too well. However, I just saw that she was familiar and won't say a name. But I turned around and said hello and smiled. She walked up to me and told me my mom had called her and asked her to come get me and ride me back because something happened at my house. She said it was an emergency and that I needed to go with her and her husband, whom my family was also familiar with. I was only about 5 minutes from my house, but I was told it was an emergency, and I agreed to go with her. As I'm walking, I get this weird feeling in my gut and the shaking in my legs that I now today realize was my instincts being on high alert. I stopped for a minute and asked if we could call my mom, and she said my mother was in the hospital right now and that I needed to hurry. Right as we were opening the door to the car, I hear my mother shout my name as loud as she can. And I turn on a dime and quickly walk towards my mom. My mom asks what's going on, and the woman replies and says that she was just giving me a ride home because she saw me. Was not the story she gave me. So I told my mother what she told me and asked what was going on. My mom just looked at me, and she could always tell when I'm lying versus when I'm telling the truth. When I'm telling the truth, the woman then goes to interrupt me, likely to lie, and my mom cuts her off and just stared back at her with the most shocked look ever. And these words still send shivers down my spine. She says in the most shocked voice ever, "You were trying to take my son," and the husband looks out the window, hurrying his wife in the car. She gets in the car because at that point my mom was ready to kill her and reached in her purse because she keeps a pocket knife. But they drove away, and right after they did, my mom looked at me and just burst into tears, saying, "I almost lost you." My mom knew full well what was happening, and I was still too shaken to even say anything and just hugged her back, and we went home. I was still in denial, and to cope, I would convince myself that maybe I wasn't in any danger. My family, of course, never kept in contact with any of them, but my stepdad at the time submitted a tip to the police of the incident. When they caught up with him about 3 months later, we had found out that he was arrested for having CP on his computer and found restraints in his closet, as well as some containers of propofol. They found pictures of me from my mom's Facebook downloaded on his computer as well, leading them to believe that I was actually being watched for a good bit. I never liked talking about it because, to this day, if I hadn't stopped for those 10 seconds to ask the woman to call my mom, I don't know where I'd be or if I'd even be alive right now. And while it may seem like something that would have easily been forgotten, it was never the case for me. I haven't even told my closest friends this story, but I might sometime soon. I asked my mom what happened that night, why she came looking for me. She described the same feeling I remembered feeling moments before I was almost abducted, just a lot sooner than I did, and just had the instinct that I was in danger. I'm not usually a lucky person. It seems the odds are always against me, but I always remember how lucky I was that night, that my mom decided to listen to her instincts when I didn't. I've never ignored my instincts since, and every night after that, when I finally did decide to leave my house, my mom would walk with me all the way up until I turned 13 to come back to live with my dad. And that, to date, is the scariest thing I think I've ever experienced. It's some shit you only hear of on the news, and nobody ever assumes it will happen to them. The sun hung low on the horizon, its amber light spilling across Highway 1 like a promise. 15-year-old Mary Vincent walked the roadside with a backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder. Her her thoughts drifting to the iced lemonade waiting at home. The hum of distant engines was a comfort, a lullaby of normalcy. Out here between the woods and the open road, she felt free. A beat-up blue Datsun slowed beside her, engine sputtering. Through the dusty windshield, she saw a man's face, strong jaw, shadowed eyes. He offered a crooked smile and rolled down the window. "Need a lift?" His voice was casual, familiar. She hesitated only a moment before stepping into the cab. The door clanged shut and the lock clicked. At first, his small talk sounded innocuous. The weather, the price of gas. He reached to adjust the radio. An old country tune crackled, but his eyes never left her. A hard shape pressed beneath his jacket. Mary's throat tightened with unease. Without warning, the car swerved off the pavement onto a gravel track. Trees closed in around them, the light vanishing beneath a canopy of pines. The engine's hum morphed into a growl. He locked the doors. Panic slammed into her chest. "You're not going anywhere," he said, voice low. He produced an ice pick. Mary's scream was swallowed by the whine of gravel under tires. He shoved her head down. Her fingers fumbled at the seatbelt. It was futile. He forced her to undress. Each rip of fabric a fresh wound to her dignity. The radio died, leaving only the pounding of her heart. When the assault was over, he jerked the car to a stop beside a ravine. In the beam of his flashlight, Mary stared at the steep drop, rocky, unforgiving. She backed away, hope flickering. Then, suddenly the blade glinted. A white-hot pain exploded in her arms. The world tilted as both limbs collapsed, wet and heavy. Her screams split the night, echoing off the trees. He shoved her limp body into the ditch and drove off, headlights receding until they vanished. Mary lay on her back in the mud, blood pooling around her torso. Darkness came swiftly. Cold mud against raw stumps became her only ally. She pressed handfuls into each wound, the grit staunching the flow just enough. Pain lanced through every nerve, but beneath it burned her will to survive. Hours passed in a blur of agony. Then, guided by a sliver of moonlight, she began to crawl. Each movement shot lightning through her body. Fingers, stumps now, dug into dirt and rock as she dragged herself inch by inch. Crickets chirped indifferently. A distant coyote's howl made her blood run cold. Yet she pressed on, spurred by memories of her mother's laughter and the promise of home. Dawn's pale glow finally pierced the forest. Mary's vision blurred, but the trees thinned. She emerged onto the asphalt, naked, smeared in mud and blood, a specter of pain and determination. She rose unsteadily and began to walk, each step a triumph over oblivion. A station wagon hurtled past. Its passengers never saw her. Mary's spirit wavered, exhaustion threatening to swallow her. Then headlights appeared again, this time slowing to a stop. A young couple on their honeymoon stared in horror, then leapt into action. They wrapped her in a blanket and called for help. As the ambulance siren wailed closer, relief crashed through her like warm water. In the hospital, Mary drifted between consciousness and fever dreams. Surgeons worked swiftly, blood transfusions, grafts, life-saving measures. The sterile glare of fluorescent lights was a far cry from the dark forest. Yet here, she felt safe. Weeks later, in a crowded courtroom, Mary faced the man who tried to erase her. She testified with steely calm, her voice unwavering as she recounted every detail. The jury watched, riveted by her courage. Yet when the gavel fell, justice faltered. Singleton received a sentence that amounted to barely 8 years behind bars. Public outrage erupted, but Mary refused to be broken. Today, Mary Vincent stands before audiences not as a victim, but as a living testament to resilience. With prosthetic arms specially designed for her, she shares her story worldwide, co-founding a support network for survivors of violent crime and pushing for tougher sentencing laws. Her tale became a catalyst for change, shining a harsh light on the vulnerabilities of trusting strangers and the flaws in a justice system quick to forgive brutality. In the spotlight, Mary raises her arms high. The applause is thunderous, but louder still is the echo of every word she spoke that night on Highway 1. She survived the unthinkable and reclaimed her life, turning horror into hope and pain into power. I haven't told anyone this. Not my family, not my friends. I guess I just need someone to believe me. Or at least it happens again tonight. Or at least to read this before it happens again tonight. It's been exactly 1 year since my younger brother Elias died. He was 3 years younger than me, but always seemed older. While I was the loud one, the one who pushed boundaries, Elias was the type to read in silence, to smile without needing a reason. The cancer hit fast. Acute leukemia. The doctors didn't sugarcoat it. They gave us a few months, maybe. But in the end, it was barely 8 weeks. I spent most of that time with him. I helped him eat when he couldn't lift his arms, held his hand when he was too weak to speak, tried to joke around just to make him laugh. In the final hours, when he was barely there, he looked right at me. Not scared, not sad, just knowing. "Don't stay alone," he whispered. That was the last thing he ever said. After that, everything shut down. There was a flat line on the monitor, a few soft words from a nurse, and then nothing. The world just stopped. I didn't cry much. Not at first. I think part of me refused to believe he was really gone. I disconnected from everything: school, friends, routines. I slept all day, stayed awake all night, barely ate. I thought maybe the silence would help me process it. Instead, it left space for something else. The first time I heard his voice again, it was around 3 a.m. I hadn't been asleep, just lying there, staring at the ceiling, the window cracked open to let in the late October wind. "Are you there?" It was faint, soft, coming from the hallway. I froze, not because I was afraid, but because I knew that voice. I got up, opened the door, turned on the lights. Nothing. Every door was locked. Windows closed. No sound except my own heartbeat. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same voice. "Are you there?" I told myself it was a trick of memory. Auditory hallucinations. Lack of sleep. That made sense, right? But the voice kept coming back. Every night at 3 a.m. sharp. And then the footsteps started. Soft, deliberate steps across the hallway floor, stopping just outside my bedroom. Never louder than a whisper, but impossible to ignore. Eventually, I started locking my door at night. But none of it worked. The sound always cut through. Always him. Then came the knocking. 3 soft taps. Then his voice, closer now. "Please, open the door." It never sounded threatening. Not angry or vengeful. Just pleading. Almost sad. I told myself I wouldn't give in. I wasn't going to open the door. I wasn't going to play into whatever this was: grief, trauma, madness. But it didn't stop. Then it got worse. I started finding things around the apartment. Objects I hadn't seen in years. Stuff I knew was in a box on the attic, sealed and forgotten. A small, worn-out toy dinosaur on the windowsill. His favorite, the one he carried everywhere as a kid. A half-drunk Capri Sun on the kitchen table. Wild cherry, the exact flavor he used to beg Mom to buy. Each day, something new. Each night, his voice. Like the past was leaking into the present. Or something was trying to lure me back. Last night, I found his old diary on my desk. It had gone with him to the hospital. I'd packed it in his bag. He never wrote much in it, but it was something that brought him comfort. It never came back home with us. I'm absolutely certain of that. And yet there it was. Dusty. Locked. Familiar. I opened it. Only one sentence had been added, written in a shaky but unmistakable hand on the last page. "I found a place for you." That's when I knew this wasn't just memory. This wasn't just grief. Something was actively reaching out. I've tried everything. I left town, booked hotel rooms, stayed with friends. I even rented a cabin hours away in the middle of nowhere and turned off my phone. But no matter where I go, at 3 a.m., I hear him, even when I'm awake, even when I know he can't possibly be there. And every night, his voice changes. Just a little, subtle at first. A flatter tone, like a recording wearing down, like a mask slowly slipping. If it's really Elias, why does he sound less and less like himself with every visit? Tonight is the anniversary of his death. 1 full year, and I'm hearing him already. No waiting for 3 a.m. This time, he's early. I hear footsteps in the hallway. Slower than usual. More deliberate. Closer. Please, open the door. I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't. Every part of me screams not to. But something inside me is whispering that tonight is different. That if I open it now, it might finally end. That maybe I'll see him. Just one more time. That maybe it won't stop unless I do. I'm standing up now. I'm walking to the door. My hand is on the lock. I'm going to open it. Before my dad died, he once told me a story from when he was in Vietnam in the 1960s. He told me about a mission where he and one other American with 5C DG Strykers, South Vietnamese villagers turned fighters, were tasked to place seismic ground sensors along a trail network deep in the jungle. He said they were about 2 days into the mission when he and 2 of the Strykers split off from the main group to go watch a nearby trail intersection. He said the jungle was pretty quiet that day, just the sounds of birds and bugs, and an occasional monkey. He said they had been watching the trail intersection for about 3 or 4 hours and were deciding on whether to move further down the trail or to turn back and link up with the rest of the patrol. Before leaving the cover of the brush, my dad said he checked the trail ahead of them one last time and prepared his men to move. Now here's where the story gets interesting, and he told this part with absolute dead seriousness. He said, just as he started to step out onto the trail, he sees a light-skinned black Union cavalry soldier in full battle gear, laying alongside the trail, just shy of the intersection. My dad said the Union soldier had 2 pistols, a Spencer rifle, and a short curved club at his hip. As my dad was trying to process what he was seeing, the soldier looked directly at him and smiled. Then the soldier slowly placed a finger up to his lips as if to tell him to be silent, and then motioned my dad back off the trail. My dad said he signaled for his men to remain hidden, and he recalled that as he slipped back into the jungle on one side of the trail, the Union soldier did the same on his side of the trail. Less than 10 seconds later, he said the lead element of a group of NVA, North Vietnamese Army soldiers, walked right through the trail intersection some 30 feet away. My dad estimated that the group was comprised of some 70 to 80 soldiers equipped with automatic rifles, light machine guns, and rocket-propelled grenade launchers. He has no doubt that his entire team would have been wiped out on the spot. He said as soon as the enemy soldiers had passed, he and his team beat feet out of there as fast and as quietly as they could and rejoined with the rest of the patrol. He reported the enemy soldiers his team had encountered, but decided not to say anything about the soldier he had seen. My dad kept this secret for many, many years, only telling me just before he passed, and earlier only telling his grandmother on her deathbed in the 1970s. He said when he told his grandmother, she smiled and without opening her eyes told him, "You saw old Red Tom." Red Tom was my great-great-grandfather. He was a half-black/half-Creek free man who was a scout for the Union Army during the Civil War and later served with the U.S. Cavalry in the American West. He was known for carrying 2 pistols, a Spencer rifle, and a Creek war club into battle.